Hi everybody, today we have some mixed media Easter cards. We're going to use some of those gel prints you have in your stash and we're going to spread some Easter joy. So I am working on the substrate of these 5x7 Strathmore watercolor cards. They are great paper and they're great to work on. And even though they're watercolor cards, we're going to use acrylic paints on them. Now I made these little paper pouches. I just folded paper together, taped around the edges, and I am going to insert the card there, and that's going to keep the card, the inside and the back, all clean and tidy. So first things up, we are going to apply color to the background of several cards. I am doing a multiple make. So it's going to be a bit of an assembly line process, but you could do each step in a different session. Now I'm only showing 4 cards here, but in reality I am making more cards and I'll be mailing these out to family and friends in the very near future. So I'm selecting colors. Now when you're selecting colors, you want to go with colors that you like. So for this one, I am picking turquoise, yellow green, and yellow. And I'm applying it with a makeup sponge. Now this is watercolor paper and it's intended to absorb moisture. It can take a lot. So when it goes on, it might be a little bit dry. So I often keep the paint wet, so I have lots of paint on the makeup sponge, on my finger, and I'm mixing in some white gesso as well, and that helps it blend. Because I do want that blend. I want the yellow and turquoise to make that next tone, and I'm lightening it up with the white gesso. This is simply the first layer. Because this is mixed media, we will be building lots of layers here. And I don't want to add layers in the way of physical texture, but I will have visual texture. Often I use the same makeup sponge. If it's getting too muddied, you can grab a clean one, as you've just seen me doing here. And if you end up and you want more yellow because you've taken out too much of that yellow, all you have to do is take your finger, add white gesso once it's dry. Of course, I didn't wait till it's dry, so do as I say, not as I do. And then you can come back when that's dry and put color on top of it. That's the advantage of acrylic paint, because once it's dry, whatever you put on top will just block that out, especially if you put a coat of gesso in there. So I'm just randomly putting on here. I want the different colors. I want this variation in the background. That's going to help make this interesting. You don't want just one flat color. So when I'm doing these multiple makes, I'm going to do different color schemes for each card, and that's going to give me some variation on the card background. Now, if you were doing one, you might want to take the time here and dry it. Now, please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell and select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. So back to this. You can dry it or just set it aside and continue doing the multiple makes, and that's what I've done. Here I'm using Naples yellow and alizarin crimson, and together they make this beautiful coral color. Then you have the different tones of it when you're adding white into it. I love how this looks soft, and acrylic paint goes so well onto this watercolor paper. Moving right along, I'm taking that same alizarin crimson. This time I am mixing it with brilliant purple. And again, I've discovered that this color combo is one that I love. So when you find a color combination that you love, write it down. Keep track of it so that you remember. And if you're wondering, I made several of those paper pouches to keep the cards clean while I'm working on them. And the last one that I'm going to show today, I am using light blue permanent, and I believe this is dioxazine purple, but it could be a different purple. I had taken it out of the tube and put it in a little container because I was at the end of the tube life. But again, this is a winning color combo. So 2 colors and white gesso. And then you get all that variation, lights and darks. You don't have to overthink this process. You simply want to avoid using colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel because they may make a color that you don't want. They're going to make that brownish mud color. And unless that's what you're going for, you want to avoid that. So red and green you wouldn't want to mix. If you're unsure, just take a little bit, mix it on the side and see what happens. If you like it, go for it. Now we're going to add the second layer, and we are going to use stencils here. This stencil is called Starflower Net, and all the stencils are from Crafter's Workshop and can be purchased at either TCW Shopify store or NinnysNapkins. The links are in the description box. So I stenciled with the purple on this one and then with the white gesso. Now with the white gesso, because my gesso is a little thin, I did get some bleed under. If you want to avoid that, use white acrylic paint that isn't so liquefied. My medium-bodied white acrylic paint would work quite well. I was just too lazy to stop and get it out. So on this one, I'm using the stencil dotted rings, and I am using white and then the purple. So again, I'm using one of the colors, a dark color from what was in the background, and white gesso. This hanging vine stencil, I'm going over with white. And then I come in with the turquoise. If you're using craft paint, please note that that is often thinner and you might end up with more bleed through, so you're going to have to be careful. So here I'm adding the turquoise. And I love the layered look that. So using the same stencil, 2 colors gives you that very layered, visually textured pattern. This stencil is called Cosmic Music. And I'm using the alizarin crimson, which is the darker color in here. And then I come in with white. Now, if you end up with a combination that you love, again, keep track of it, right? Have a little book on your work table. Say, oh, I like the combo of this, or I like how this worked. So if I was doing this with multiple makes and not making a video, I would do all the backgrounds, do the different colors. So next layer, we are going to add stamping. And here I am using the Darkroom Door Elegant Script stamp and black archival ink. On this one, I'm using Stampers Anonymous, one of my newest favorite stamps. This one is out of the Faded Type pack, and I love that one. I'll be using another stamp from this one. Now you can stamp before you stencil. It's going to give a slightly different look. Try which way and try both and see which way you like it best. This is from the Faded Type stencil, and I put some numbers on here. Very different look on this card as the other ones. I was just playing, experimenting. These cards, even though I'm going with an Easter card with these. You can make all these backgrounds and have them at this stage, at the ready, and then you can just add a focal image and sentiment, perfect for whatever occasion you want a card. So you can pre-make up to this point. This stamp was the Words stamp from Stamperia, another favorite stamp of mine. So now I'm going to edge all the cards with black acrylic paint and my floating acrylic or shading technique. If you search in my channel and just put in shading, you will find that video where I teach this technique. It's a favorite technique. I use it on every single project. And doing it on these cards is good practice of that technique. So here I've just chosen to use black acrylic paint because I've done the black with the stamping, and I know I'm going to be adding a sentiment that's also going to be black. And I want all those elements to go together. So there are my cards. Now I cut out some egg templates and I played with sizing, and then I sat in front of the TV and cut all those eggs out. Now, when I'm choosing the eggs for the background, you can go with colors that are the same as the background, or you can go with colors that are across the color wheel. And I'm going to describe what I did on each of these cards later on in the video, so using the color wheel as a reference. So I'm just playing with the eggs that I have cut out and throwing them on. I'm looking at the eggs. I want to have several eggs that have similar colors that work well together. So I put it on, take it off, and play with them until I get enough for each one, and then I make my final choices. So now that I've finalized my choices, I'm just going to set that aside. Now I decided here before I decide if I'm going to put 2 or 3 or 5 eggs on here, I need to figure out what I'm going to put for sentiments. Now you could omit the sentiments altogether and it would still make a lovely card. So I typed out a few and did it in different sizes. And here I'm just cutting them down, bubble cutting, or just cutting it into rectangles. So now I'm using my matte gel, medium or fluid medium, and just gluing everything down. I'm overlapping, I'm going over the edge on some of them, and I'll be cutting that excess off, but it adds to the page. And I'm turning some eggs this way, some that way. You want variation. This would be a nice thing to make. You can have a card making party with your kids or your friends and have the gel prints there, the templates there, the watercolor cards, and everybody makes their own card. Now here I decided to bubble cut around the letters. I wanted to remove a lot of that white. I didn't like how that looked, so that's an option. And then I splattered everything with gold. I know not everybody's a fan of the splatter. I love the splatter, and I love gold splatter, and that just makes the card a little extra special. And then I will dry this or leave it to dry. But you really want to let those splatters dry because you'll smudge them. Once everything's dry, you can cut off the excess, the stuff that goes over the rim. Now here I went from the top But an easier way is to flip it open and cut from this side. You'll get a lot closer to the edge and it's easier to see where you're going to cut. Now I'm putting back some of the edging because of course the eggs overlapped, and then I'm shading all the eggs. I'm going on top of the paper, and then I come back and I shade in between the eggs where they overlap, where there would be shadows. And I love this process since it really seems to bring the page to light. I'm also shading around the sentiments, especially if they are rectangular in shape. You just watch this evolve and suddenly those eggs just pop off the page. I put on one layer of it and then I'll come back later and I may add more shading. This is a great project for using up those gel prints that you have in your stash. And you can see some have more pattern, some have less. I like using a variety. And here I'm shading in between where the shadows would be. Now I'm going to take my Posca pen, black, and outline the sentiments. And I'm taking my white and I'm adding some doodling on the eggs. Now this is optional, of course. Anything's optional. If you don't like it, you don't need to do it. You can edit it right out. I like the white here, but I liked it equally well without it. So that's an option. And then I'm outlining the card with the white as well. It would also look really nice using the Sakura glaze black pens because that's dimensional and glossy, so that'll add a little extra something something. And you can vary the lines that you make. I find it easier to put the dash dash or the line dot 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 than a straight line all the way around. Just be sure to shake your Posca pen so you get good opacity of paint. When I started, I hadn't shaken the white, and it was very watered down. So here are the cards, and here's the color wheel. So here we have the purple in the background, purple and blue, so we're in this neighborhood, and we stay, the analogous, we stay in the same tone, and it shows up. Here we have the peach and yellows, and again, the focal image, we stayed there. On this one, we're over here with the background, but to make it really pop, we have some of that teal on the other side. Same thing here, the background is teal and yellow, and the focal images are across the color wheel, and they really show. So 2 different ways of going, and both give some lovely results. Now the envelopes come with the Strathmore watercolor cards, and you can see the inside has been kept mostly clean, but I thought it would be cute to take some of those eggs that I had cut out. I edged them, I shaded them, and I'm just going to glue that on when I mail this. A cute little addition. Again, not necessary, but it's something that you can do. So I just made one that's going to go with each card, and when I mail them off, I'll just glue them on. So let's look at these. Happy hunting. Have an excellent Easter. I think this one's my favorite. You're extra special. And a little extra love. Or maybe this one's my favorite. Which one's your favorite? 1, 2, 3, 4, starting at the top. Now I've got lots of eggs and I got more cards, so I'm going to continue with my multiple make of mixed media cards. I hope you give it a try. Go use those gel prints and go get creative.